Across the UK, 10 community centres hide unbelievable secrets. By day, they're full of life, but at night, shadows stir, whispers echo, and something watches. What haunts these halls? 1. Herworth Grange Community Centre, nestled in the peaceful village of Herworth-on-Tees, County Durham, stands a Victorian mansion with ivy-covered walls and an unassuming charm. Today, it serves as the local community centre, a place for bingo nights, family gatherings and toddler playgroups. But behind its warm exterior lies one of England's most chilling and well-documented hauntings. The Herworth Grange Community Centre was built in 1875 as a private residence. Over the decades, it passed through various hands, including wartime use and temporary housing. But it's what has remained inside that truly disturbs people. Reports of paranormal activity began surfacing in the late 1990s. A local cleaner, alone during her early morning shift, claimed to hear the sound of children laughing in the basement. She thought perhaps a group had arrived early, but when she opened the heavy cellar door, the laughter stopped instantly. The room was dark, freezing cold, and completely empty. Others began to speak up. A man who ran a youth club there described seeing a small boy in Victorian clothing standing in the corridor. He smiled, then faded into the wall. Several volunteers have refused to return after hearing whispers, calling their names, or seeing doors slam shut on their own. Then came the ghost hunters. Herworth Grange drew the attention of multiple paranormal investigation teams, and they weren't disappointed. One group captured what appeared to be EVPs of a child's voice crying for his mother. Another claimed to witness a dark figure watching from the upper staircase, only to vanish when approached. Some say the building acts as a spiritual magnet, a kind of portal that draws entities in. In 2006, a well-known psychic visiting the centre collapsed during a public demonstration, later claiming she had been overwhelmed by dozens of voices, all speaking at once. Even today, guests talk about the atmosphere of the building, that sense of being watched, of not being alone. What's chilling isn't just what's seen, it's what's felt. Herworth Grange Community Centre remains open to the public, but some say the past has never truly left its halls. 2. Angmaring Community Centre. In the quiet village of Angmaring, West Sussex, stands a modern-looking community centre, bright, functional, and well used by locals for coffee mornings and choir rehearsals. But underneath its polished floors and cheerful decor lies a secret far older and far darker than anyone expected. Angmaring Community Centre is said to be built on land that once served as a plague burial site, dating back to the 14th century. Though no official records confirm it, the village has long whispered of mass graves hidden beneath the earth, hurriedly dug during the Black Death. And since the centre opened, strange occurrences have made even the most skeptical visitors uneasy. It began with sounds. Cleaners heard soft crying late at night, echoing down empty corridors. Staff would hear doors opening and closing, though no one else was in the building. One volunteer, locking up after an evening event, swore she heard a young voice whisper, "Don't leave me," just as she turned off the lights. Then came the sightings. Multiple reports described a pale woman in grey drifting past the windows when the centre was supposedly empty. One group, using the main hall for a yoga session, claimed the temperature dropped suddenly, and when they reviewed a photo taken during class, they saw an extra figure standing at the back. A woman in a bonnet, her face blurred beyond recognition. Some locals believe the building is haunted by the restless spirits of plague victims, buried without names or markers. A medium who visited the center during a charity event claimed the area held grief baked into the soil and warned that some presences there didn't want to be disturbed. But perhaps the most chilling account came from a group of teenagers during a late-night community film screening. Midway through the movie, the projector cut out. They thought it was just a fuse, but on the walls, every frame of the paused film had been scratched through, as if clawed by invisible hands. When staff arrived the next morning, the damage had vanished. The walls were perfectly intact. Today, the Angmaring Community Centre remains a vital part of village life. But ask around and you'll find few who are willing to be the last one out at night. Because when the lights go off and the doors are locked, some say the centre awakens. 3. Waterside Youth and Community Centre. On the surface, the Waterside Youth and Community Centre in Oxfordshire seems like any other modest public building. Neutral brick walls, fluorescent lighting, and cheerful posters pinned to cork boards. But beneath that mundane exterior lies a growing reputation for something darker. The centre sits near the edge of a canal, once the site of an old warehouse and workers' sheds. Long before it became a place for community art classes and holiday clubs, the land it stands on was associated with tragedy, a drowning, some say, or a fatal accident involving one of the old canal workers. But whatever the truth, something changed during a renovation in the early 2000s. It began with small things: tools going missing, equipment found in the wrong places, lights that would flicker violently for seconds at a time, but only in one room. At first, contractors joked about a mischievous ghost, until one of them was nearly injured by a scaffolding pole that fell straight down from a static position, missing his head by inches. Then came the voices. One night, a youth worker locking up the building alone heard what he thought was someone in the hallway. He called out, no response. Then, loud and clear, he heard a deep voice behind him say, "Get out." When he spun around, the corridor was empty, the air suddenly ice cold. A local paranormal investigation team was invited in. They brought EMF detectors, infrared cameras, and audio recorders. Within 30 minutes, all electronics malfunctioned. The temperature dropped by over 10 degrees in one hallway, and in one of the youth rooms, a recorder picked up the unmistakable sound of sobbing, followed by a splash, as if something had fallen into water, though there were no pipes or plumbing nearby. One theory suggests the spirit belongs to a young man who drowned in the canal decades ago, possibly during a drunken accident or a suicide. Another belief is that the renovation disturbed something that should have been left alone, a memory, a presence, or a grudge. Today, most daytime users of the centre report no problems, but evening staff speak of a constant heaviness in the air, of doors that creak open by themselves, of a silhouette in the reflection of the window that isn't their own. Waterside Youth and Community Centre continues to serve the community proudly. But some say, when night falls, the building doesn't just echo with memories, it listens. And sometimes, it answers.
Mountfield Village Hall.
Tucked deep in the East Sussex countryside, Mountfield Village Hall sits at the edge of an ancient woodland, surrounded by mist, moss-covered trees, and a silence that never seems to lift. To passing visitors, it's a modest venue. Wooden floors, folding chairs, a community notice board. But for locals, it's a place whispered about in low voices, especially after dark. The land the hall occupies has long been associated with old beliefs, stories of forest spirits, flickering lights seen between the trees, and travellers who vanished after taking the wrong path home. Some say the hall was built on the site of a Saxon boundary marker, a place never meant to be disturbed. Odd occurrences began shortly after a refurbishment in the late 1980s. A large antique mirror was donated by a local family and hung in the side room. Not long after, visitors began to complain about seeing figures in the mirror, people who weren't in the room. One woman, attending a sewing group, said she glanced up and saw herself, but standing several feet behind her actual position, smiling, but wrong. Then came the dreams. Several people who used the hall regularly began to report the same nightmare, walking alone through the woods outside, hearing a bell toll in the distance, and feeling someone or something following just behind them. Some woke up with scratches on their arms. One child drew a picture of the tree man he said came to visit him during birthday parties. In 2004, a pagan history group held a private solstice gathering in the hall. They reported a strong spiritual charge in the space and claimed the building had crossed into a natural threshold, a liminal space between the living and the dead. The mirror was eventually removed after a parish councillor fainted in front of it during a quiet meeting. She claimed to have seen a young girl staring out, trapped behind the glass, mouthing words no one could hear. To this day, lights in the village hall will occasionally flicker without reason. Strange cold spots have been recorded, even in summer, and the nearby woods, thick, quiet, and endlessly still, seem to close in just a little tighter each year. Mountfield Village Hall remains open and hosts everything from craft fairs to yoga classes, but those who know the land's history never stay alone for long, because some doors, once opened, can't be closed, and some mirrors, once looked into, remember you.
5.
Rainford Village Hall. Nestled in the heart of Merseyside, Rainford Village Hall has long been a centre of community life, hosting everything from dance classes to local council meetings. But behind its familiar brick facade lies a chilling secret, whispered among residents and visitors alike. For decades, those who have worked late into the evening tell of strange happenings, footsteps echoing through empty corridors, cold drafts in rooms sealed tight, and a persistent sense of unease that seems to cling to the very walls. One of the most commonly reported apparitions is that of a grey figure, indistinct yet unmistakably human in shape. Staff first encountered the shadowy presence during the 1990s, when volunteers cleaning after an event found themselves watched by what they described as a silent observer. Several people have reported seeing the figure standing near the stage during rehearsals, only for it to vanish when approached. Knocks and raps are a common occurrence. Rooms that have been locked tight suddenly echo with rhythmic pounding, as if someone unseen is trying to communicate, or perhaps warn. Temperature anomalies are also frequent, with sudden drops in warmth reported during calm weather, heightening the eerie atmosphere. One particularly unnerving experience came from a caretaker who entered the hall early one morning. As she switched on the lights, she felt an overwhelming sadness wash over her, followed by the distinct sound of a child crying. Yet when she searched the entire building, it was empty. Locals speculate that the hall is haunted by spirits connected to the village's industrial past, where hardship and tragedy were all too common. Some believe these restless souls remain, tethered to the hall by unresolved sorrow. Despite these unsettling events, Rainford Village Hall continues to thrive as a hub for the community, but many who have encountered the unexplained here agree on one thing. When night falls, the building feels different, alive in a way that's not quite human.
6.
South Ruislip Community Centre. Located in the bustling suburb of London, South Ruislip Community Centre stands as a modern beacon of neighbourhood activity, hosting classes, events and gatherings day and night. But beneath its contemporary facade, tales of strange occurrences have quietly spread through the local community. The earliest reports come from evening volunteers who spoke of doors slamming violently without explanation, echoing through otherwise empty corridors. One evening, a caretaker arrived to find several rooms locked, only to hear what sounded like children's laughter drifting through the air, despite no one else being inside. Perhaps most unsettling is the story of a tall woman in black, seen gliding silently down the centre's long corridors. Described by witnesses as having a ghostly pale face and hollow eyes, she disappears suddenly when approached, leaving behind a chill in the air. The building's history offers little clue as to her identity, but some speculate she may be the restless spirit of someone tied to the area's past, a tragic figure who refuses to leave. Paranormal investigators visiting the center have recorded unexplained EMF spikes and captured mysterious shadowy figures on camera. Visitors frequently report feeling watched or experiencing sudden drops in temperature, particularly in the older parts of the building. Despite its haunted reputation, South Ruislip Community Centre remains a vital part of local life. But as night falls and the last lights go out, many staff choose to lock up quickly, wary of the unseen presence that lingers in the shadows.
7. Lanchester Community Centre,
Durham. In the historic village of Lanchester, County Durham, the community centre stands as a hub for local gatherings, clubs and events. But beneath its familiar exterior, a series of chilling encounters have left a lasting mark on those who frequent the building. Locals tell stories of unexplained footsteps echoing through empty rooms late at night. Volunteers locking up have spoken of doors creaking open on their own, despite being securely shut just moments before. And whispers, soft, unintelligible, have been reported, often heard when no one else is around. One of the most haunting tales involves the basement, an area rarely used, dimly lit and cold. Several people have described an oppressive atmosphere there, as if the air itself is heavy with sorrow. A youth leader once reported seeing a shadowy figure standing silently in the corner, only to vanish when approached. Another common experience is the sudden flicker of lights, sometimes plunging rooms into darkness without warning. These power fluctuations have baffled electricians, who found no faults in the wiring. Paranormal investigators visiting Lanchester Community Centre have recorded strange EVPs, including voices calling out names and faint footsteps captured on audio when no one was present. Temperature drops and unexplained cold spots are frequent, especially near the basement stairs. Some speculate the site was once a gathering place for local miners and their families, and that the spirits of those who suffered tragedies in the area remain, unwilling or unable to move on. Despite the eerie events, Lanchester Community Centre remains active, its halls filled with laughter and life during the day. But as darkness falls, a chilling reminder lingers that some echoes of the past never fade away.
8.
Hanwell Community Centre. Hanwell Community Centre, located in the heart of West London, is a bustling hub for cultural events, meetings and social activities. Yet, beneath the lively atmosphere, the building holds a reputation that many prefer not to speak about openly. The centre was once a grand Victorian schoolhouse, dating back to the late 19th century before being repurposed for community use. Its long history is etched into the walls, and some say that the echoes of its past inhabitants still linger. Staff have reported strange phenomena for years: sudden chills that run down the spine, objects mysteriously moving across rooms, and unexplained noises. Footsteps in empty corridors, doors creaking without cause, and faint whispers just beyond hearing. One frequent sighting is that of a shadowy figure, often described as a man in old-fashioned clothing, seen standing silently in doorways or peering from stairwells. Several visitors have said they felt a presence watching them, especially during late-night events when the centre is nearly empty. A particularly chilling story comes from a caretaker who once stayed late to prepare for an early morning event. She reported hearing the sound of a child's laughter echoing through the halls, followed by a soft sobbing. When she investigated, there was no one in sight. Just an overwhelming sense of sadness that lingered long after the sounds faded. Paranormal investigators have been drawn to Hanwell, capturing unexplained EMF spikes and recording voices that seem to plead or warn. Some suggest the centre sits on a site of former local significance, perhaps linked to tragedies long forgotten. Today, Hanwell Community Centre remains a vital part of the community, full of life and activity. But those who have experienced its darker side say it's a place where the past refuses to rest, quietly reminding visitors that some stories are never truly over. 9. Central Community Centre, Swindon. In the bustling town of Swindon, the Central Community Centre stands as a lively hub for social gatherings, workshops, and local events. Yet, beneath its busy facade, the building holds a dark and unsettling past, one that has left an indelible mark on those who spend time within its walls after hours. The centre was built on the grounds of an old Victorian workhouse, a place where many endured hardship, sickness, and despair during the 19th century. It's said that the spirits of those who suffered there have never truly left, their pain and sorrow lingering like a heavy fog. Visitors and staff have reported sudden drops in temperature in certain rooms, cold spots that chill the air and send shivers down the spine. Doors often slam shut without warning, sometimes with such force it echoes throughout the entire building. Lights flicker unpredictably, casting long shadows that seem to twist and writhe just beyond the edges of vision. Several late-night workers have shared eerie experiences, hearing footsteps pacing the hallways when no one else is around, or the faint dragging sound of chains scraping along the floor. One volunteer recalls a chilling moment when she felt an overwhelming presence behind her as she set up chairs for a community event. Turning, she glimpsed a figure clad in tattered clothing, with hollow, empty eyes staring back, before it vanished into thin air. Paranormal investigators visiting the site have captured strange audio recordings, including whispered names and desperate cries for help, believed to be echoes of the workhouse inmates. Some say the spirits are trapped by their unresolved suffering, replaying fragments of their torment endlessly. Despite its grim history, the Central Community Centre continues to serve as a vital space for Swindon's community life. But many who have encountered the unexplained agree on one thing. The building feels different when night falls, as if the past refuses to stay buried. If you ever visit after hours, beware the shadows, and remember, some histories are never truly laid to rest. 10. Prestonpans Community Centre, situated in the historic coastal town of Prestonpans, East Lothian, the community centre is a hub for locals, hosting everything from art classes to town meetings. But beneath its welcoming facade lies a chilling tale that has persisted for decades, haunting those who dare to spend time within its walls after dark. Prestonpans Community Centre occupies a site steeped in history, once part of the battleground where the infamous Battle of Prestonpans took place in 1745, a pivotal clash during the Jacobite uprising. Some say the very ground beneath the building is soaked with the echoes of the fallen, their restless spirits forever bound to the site. Over the years, staff and visitors alike have reported a variety of strange and unsettling phenomena. One of the most commonly experienced is the sudden sensation of being watched, an oppressive, unseen presence that seems to follow people through the corridors. Doors reportedly open and close of their own accord, often slamming shut with enough force to startle even the most seasoned staff. Lights flicker unpredictably, plunging rooms into darkness for moments at a time. But perhaps the most disturbing occurrences happen during the quiet hours of the night, when the center is empty and the only sound is the wind outside. Caretakers have spoken of hearing distant battle cries, the clash of swords, and the heavy stomping of boots, sounds impossibly out of place in a modern building. One security guard reported witnessing the apparition of a soldier in full 18th century regalia standing silently at the top of the stairs before vanishing into the shadows. Others have seen ghostly figures wandering the hallways, a man in a tartan sash, a woman clutching a lantern, and groups of shadowy shapes reenacting scenes from that historic day. The center's walls are said to hold these memories tightly, like a recording device playing an eternal loop. Paranormal experts who have investigated the site speak of powerful residual energy and emotional imprints left by the trauma of battle. Some claim that on certain nights, the veil between past and present grows thin, allowing the dead to cross into our world, if only briefly. Despite the eerie reputation, Prestonpans Community Centre remains an active and beloved part of the town. But those who work there know to respect the past and tread carefully after dusk. For here, in this unassuming building, history never truly rests, and the spirits of Prestonpans continue their silent vigil, waiting to be remembered. The shadows aren't finished yet. For more chilling tales, subscribe to Creepy Experience. Like, comment, and share. Tell us which story gave you chills, and don't forget to hit the bell if you dare.